This is Dan McGwire. You may have heard of his older brother, Mark McGwire, the famous MLB star.
McGwire, if he should hit a home run today, he would equal the National League record for consecutive games having a homer to start a season. Willie Mays is the only player to have ever done so, homering in each of the first 4 games to start the 71 season.
He doesn't need to do that now. He's already hit a homer in this series. He's got 14 consecutive series.
He launches one to deep center field, way back there, and gone.
Mark McGwire would have become a successful MLB player, but Dad, he had a different story.
McGwire, he gets his shot, he makes the most of it. To Brian Blades, touchdown, 7.
Look out. 4th sack of the day for the Cowboys, and McGwire is shaken up. Robert Jones.
Dan McGwire would have had one of the shortest and worst careers ever, for spanning from 91 to 95. But what if he was drafted by a different team? Here's how it would happen. First, we need to set some ground rules. Number 1, injuries are unavoidable. Considering the fact he's 6'8", 240, he's going probably to get injured. 2, this starts right at the 91 draft. And 3, everything will change. Nothing would be the same at most. I don't think Dan McGwire would have been taken in the first round, mainly because, again, being 6'8", 240, they're kind of scared of injuries. Plus, he's from San Diego State, and they are not highly looked at football. So in that case, for the 29th pick in the NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns select Dan McGwire, quarterback, San Diego State. That's right, he becomes a Cleveland Browns, joining the man, the myth, the legend, Bill Belichick. Here's how I see Bill Belichick coaching Dan McGwire. 1, he'll create a system in which he'll become a decent quarterback. 2, Dan would probably have actual receivers and a line, so the system might work. The original 91 season, the Cleveland Browns went 6-10. I see that changing for them going 8-8, winning 2 more games. Dan McGwire would end up having an average rookie season with 2,450 yards, 28 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, ultimately giving him NFL Rookie of the Year. In the offseason, nothing really changes. In the 1992 draft, they only dropped 2 spaces back for being 8-8. The Browns went 7-9 in the original 1992 regular season. But with Dan McGwire, they go 10-6, making the division round and losing to the Oilers. Dan McGwire would have an amazing season with 3,253 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, basically giving him his first Pro Bowl and probably first team. In the 1993 offseason, originally Vinny Testaverde went to the Browns, but without a quarterback spot open, Vinny Testaverde would eventually end up probably in a mediocre team for 2 seasons. And then the 1993 draft, they will probably select more offensive tackle later in the round to keep Dan McGwire safe. In the original 1993 season, the Cleveland Browns went 7-9, ultimately missing the playoffs. What I see here, Dan McGwire gets injured in the middle of the season, and they still go 7-9. Due to Dan McGwire being injured for most of the season, he would only make 2,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 20 interceptions, but still makes a Pro Bowl. Since nothing really changes in the 1994 offseason, let's move on to the 94 regular season. Original 1994 season, the Cleveland Browns went 11-5. I see that changing by them going 13-3 and making the AFC Championship, losing to the Chargers. Dan McGuire will prove his doubts, making 4,203 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, making his third Pro Bowl appearance in 3 years. In the 1995 offseason, nothing really changes again. So let's move on to the regular season. 1995 season, it was a travesty since Art Modell, the owner at the time, wanted to move the team to Baltimore. So they went 7-9, but this time, I still think they're gonna move, but they lose 3 more games, and after the season's over, Dan McGuire gets traded to a different team. Due to Dan McGuire hearing the news that the Browns move after this season and him being injured, he only made 1,304 yards with 12 touchdowns and 20 interceptions and being placed on IR for the rest of the year. I believe when Dan McGuire leaves the Browns, he will become a San Diego Chargers for the next 3 seasons until moving to a different team afterwards. The original 1996 season, the Chargers went 8-8. With Dan McGuire going to a new team and playing with a different system, I believe the same thing will happen. They will go 8-8 and miss the playoffs. I think Dan McGuire will try to make a comeback, but this season he had 1,508 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, missing a Pro Bowl. Again, in 1997, I really see nothing changing, except maybe the San Diego Chargers picking up a wide receiver or 2 for Dan McGuire. The 1997 Chargers season, they would go 4-12. I see them only winning 1 more game, going 5-11, and probably after the season, start trading Dan McGuire. Dan McGuire again has another lackluster season with 1,052 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 26 interceptions, being traded at the end of the season. In the 1998 offseason, Dan McGuire will end up as a St. Louis Ram, ultimately becoming a career backup. Dan McGuire will end up being a career backup, ending his career in 2001. But hey, at least he got 1 Super Bowl.